You stand in the dim, echoing grotto of Capri, the cool seawater lapping at your thighs, thick with the salty tang of the Mediterranean mingled with something fouler, a musky reek of sweat and arousal that clings to the damp stone walls like a festering wound. Around you, young boys, their skin pale and slick, dart like minnows through the waves, their small mouths brushing against your flesh, nibbling and licking with insistent, probing tongues that send shivers of revulsion through your body, their bites sharp and unrelenting, drawing beads of blood that swirl in the current like crimson accusations. This is no innocent swim. This is the private hell of Emperor Tiberius, where the boundaries of power dissolve into grotesque depravity. And you, thrust into this nightmare, feel the weight of his gaze upon you, hungry and unyielding, promising revelations that will shatter your illusions of ancient grandeur forever. In the shadowed annals of history, the Roman emperors wielded absolute power, their reigns etched in marble and blood, yet behind the facades of conquest and governance lurked sexual practices so shocking, so viscerally abhorrent, that they were whispered in hushed tones by contemporaries and censored by later chroniclers. These were not mere indulgences, but manifestations of unchecked tyranny, where the emperor's intimate dysfunctions bled into the political realm, corrupting empires and dooming lineages. From Tiberius's pedophilic obsessions on Capri to Caligula's incestuous rampages, Nero's sadistic simulations of bestiality, and Elagabalus's desperate quest for anatomical reconfiguration, these revelations expose the taboo underbelly of Roman rule, hidden truths of royal dysfunction, medical abnormalities, and graphic humiliations that mainstream accounts have long sanitized. Before diving into these forgotten stories of survival and suffering, if you enjoy learning about the hidden truths of history, consider hitting that like button and subscribing for more content like this. And please comment below to let me know where you're listening from. I find it incredible that we're exploring these ancient stories together from different parts of the world, connected across time and space by our shared curiosity about the past. Tiberius, successor to Augustus and ruler from 14 to 37 AD, ascended to the throne as a seasoned general, his public image one of stoic restraint and administrative prowess, yet his private life unraveled into a tapestry of depravity that shocked even the jaded Roman elite. Retiring to the island of Capri in 26 AD, ostensibly for seclusion, he transformed the rocky paradise into a lair of unbridled lust, where his sexual practices escalated from mere excess to pathological obsession. Suetonius, in his Lives of the Caesars, recounts how Tiberius assembled teams of wantons, both male and female, dubbed spintrii, experts in deviant intercourse, who performed in triple unions before him, their bodies entwined in grotesque configurations designed to ignite his waning desires, the air thick with the grunts and slickened slaps of flesh against flesh, a symphony of degradation that masked his deepening impotence. Deeper still into this abyss, Tiberius's proclivities turned toward the innocent, training little boys, whom he termed tiddlers, to crawl between his thighs during swims, teasing his genitals with licks and nibbles, as if suckling at a breast, their unweaned mouths exploring his flaccid member with a fervor that betrayed the emperor's fondness for this infantile form of satisfaction. The water churning with a mingled sense of brine and seminal fluid, a putrid brew that symbolized his psychological deterioration. One particularly harrowing account from Suetonius describes how, during a sacrificial ceremony, Tiberius, inflamed by an acolyte's beauty, debauched the boy and his flute-playing brother immediately after the rites, their cries echoing through the temple. When they dared complain, he ordered their legs broken, the cracks of bone underscoring the fragility of life under his rule. These acts were not isolated. They formed a pattern of pedophilic predation, where young victims, sourced from across the empire, were groomed as pans and nymphs in Capri's groves, soliciting passers-by outside bowers and grottos, the island earning the moniker the Old Goat's Garden, in mocking reference to Tiberius's Caprine lasciviousness. The emperor's abuse extended to women of high birth, his advances grotesque and unrelenting, as evidenced by the tragic fate of Melonia, who, brought to his bed and refusing his obscenities, was handed to informers for torment. Even during her trial, Tiberius taunted her with questions of remorse, driving her to suicide by stabbing, her final words upbraiding the ugly old man for his foulness. Blood pooling on the floor like a testament to his anatomical monstrosity. Bedrooms on Capri were adorned with salacious paintings and sculptures, including Parrhasius's depiction of Atalanta pleasuring Meleager orally, which Tiberius cherished despite its million sesterce alternative value, hanging it as a focal point for his depravities. The erotic library stocked with Elephantus's manuals serving as blueprints for performers, ensuring no act went unillustrated in his quest for stimulation. Caligula, reigning from 37 to 41 AD, inherited Tiberius's throne and amplified the depravity. His sexual practices a whirlwind of incest and exploitation that subverted familial bonds and imperial dignity. From childhood, he engaged in habitual incest with his sisters, Agrippina the Younger, Drusilla, and Livilla. Their shared beds a secret festering within the palace walls. Drusilla his favorite, taken from her husband and treated as a consort, their couplings witnessed by courtiers who dared not intervene. Suetonius details how Caligula prostituted his other sisters to his favorites, their bodies bartered for political favor, the air in the chambers heavy with the incense of betrayal and the sharp, metallic tang of coerced intimacy, a visceral reminder of power's corrosive touch. Transforming the imperial palace into a brothel, Caligula furnished grand rooms where matrons and freeborn youths were exposed for hire, pages dispatched to summon patrons, money lent at interest to ensnare the elite in debt and complicity, the clink of coins mingling with moans of feigned pleasure, a grotesque parody of commerce that replenished his coffers while humiliating the aristocracy. His promiscuity knew no bounds. He respected neither his own chastity nor others. Advances made to women of rank during banquets, his wife reclining above as his sisters lay below, the table laden with delicacies that masked the underlying rot of moral decay. One shocking revelation involves his illness in 37 AD, after which his behavior spiraled, suggesting a neurological affliction, perhaps encephalitis or epilepsy, that exacerbated his hypersexuality, turning latent impulses into public spectacles of horror. Nero, emperor from 54 to 68 AD, elevated depravity to theatrical heights, his practices blending sadism, incest, and gender subversion in a crescendo of imperial madness. Incest with his mother, Agrippina, marked the beginning. Carried in a litter together, their couplings betrayed by stains on his clothing, the confined space reeking of maternal perfume and filial transgression, a bond that threatened her power and prompted Nero's murderous schemes, from a collapsible boat to poison, culminating in her stabbing, her womb exposed in a final act of desecration. Suetonius recounts Nero's invention of a game where, clad in wild animal skins, he burst from a cage to attack the genitals of bound men and women, teeth tearing at exposed flesh in simulated bestiality, the arena echoing with screams and the coppery scent of blood, before being finished off by his freedman Doryphorus, whom he later married as a bride, mimicking female cries during consummation. Perhaps most grotesque was Nero's relationship with Sporus, a young boy resembling his deceased wife Poppaea, castrated to preserve his feminine allure. The surgery a brutal reconfiguration involving removal of testes, the wound festering with pus and pain as Nero paraded him in bridal veils, dowry in tow, the palace festivities awash in the irony of a mock wedding where the groom's anatomy was forever altered. Sporus enduring penetration in a parody of matrimony that highlighted Nero's psychological unraveling. Along the Tiber and Gulf of Baiae, Nero established booths of debauchery, matrons posing as innkeepers to solicit him ashore, their solicitations laced with the desperation of coerced participation, the waters lapping at shores stained by nocturnal excesses. Elagabalus, the teenage emperor from 218 to 222 AD, embodied a whirlwind of sexual fluidity and self-abasement. His practices shocking for their defiance of Roman gender norms and desperate pursuit of transformation. Arriving in Rome as a priest to the sun god, he married multiple women, including a Vestal virgin, violating sacred chastity, but his true passions lay with men. He prostituted himself in taverns and brothels, face painted, body depilate, adopting feminine attire and demanding to be called lady, the dim establishments reeking of cheap wine and the sweat of anonymous encounters. His imperial status, a hidden irony amid the grime. Cassius Dio reports Elagabalus's marriage to his charioteer Hierocles, submitting his wife, feigning bruises from beatings, the relationship a grotesque inversion of power where the emperor begged for subjugation. In a pinnacle of dysfunction, Elagabalus offered half his empire to a surgeon capable of equipping him with female genitalia, a procedure involving crude incisions and insertions, the envisioned wound a festering portal to his desired identity, though never realized, his paranoia amounting as courtiers whispered of his effeminacy. Commodus, ruling from 180 to 192 AD, maintained a harem of 300 concubines and as many boys, selected for their beauty, his palace a labyrinth of carnal excess where he dressed as an Amazon, club in hand, engaging in gladiatorial simulations that ended in rape, the air thick with the metallic clang of weapons and the cries of the violated. His megalomania manifesting in renaming Rome after himself, a public facade crumbling under private indulgences. These emperors' sexual practices did not exist in isolation. They inflicted profound personal costs, fracturing relationships and eroding mental stability. Tiberius's pedophilia isolated him on Capri, his court physicians documenting a progressive impotence likely stemming from venereal diseases, perhaps syphilis-like infections rampant in antiquity, the festering sores on his genitals a secret agony that fueled his cruelty, servants witnessing his nocturnal rages as attempts at concealment failed, laudanum-laced wines dulling the pain but heightening paranoia. His victims, the broken-legged brothers, symbolized collateral damage, their families silenced by fear, the emperor's isolation breeding a psychological deterioration that manifested in tyrannical edicts, his once sharp mind clouded by the guilt of unspoken horrors. Caligula's incestuous bonds poisoned familial ties. Drusilla's death in 38 AD plunged him into madness. Her deification a desperate cover for grief intertwined with lust, medical records hinting at postpartum complications from possible pregnancies, her womb hemorrhaging in silence, the emperor's public mourning a facade for private torment. Spouses and subjects suffered alike. His wives endured his whims. One divorced mid-pregnancy. The court a web of suspicion where intimates were executed for perceived slights. The political impact rippling through alliances shattered by his brothel schemes, senators bankrupted and humiliated, sowing seeds of the conspiracy that ended his life. Nero's sadistic games left physical scars on victims, bound and mauled, their genitals mangled in displays that blurred entertainment and torture, physicians treating survivors for infections that spread like wildfire through torn tissue, the emperor's own body bearing marks of excess. Obesity from gluttony, skin pocked by diseases contracted in orgies. His mother Agrippina's murder haunted him, apparitions driving opium dependencies, his mental state fracturing into delusions that affected governance. Fires and purges attributed to his instability, the empire's resources diverted to fund his depravities, subjects starving while brothels flourished. Elagabalus's gender dysphoria, a modern lens revealing possible intersex conditions or hormonal imbalances, led to desperate measures. His depilations causing razor burns and infections. The proposed surgery a harbinger of fatal risks in an era without antiseptics, blood loss, and sepsis looming threats. His marriages dissolved in scandal, spouses discarded, the Praetorian Guard growing resentful of his effeminacy, political decisions swayed by lovers like Hierocles, foreign policies neglected amid personal quests, the sun cult's imposition alienating traditionalists and precipitating his downfall. Commodus's harem bred jealousy and intrigue. Concubines plotting amid the opulence, his isolation profound as paranoia set in, believing plots in every shadow, his gladiatorial pursuits masking erectile dysfunctions from overindulgence. Medical treatises of the time noting such failures in the oversexed, his attempts at concealment involving aphrodisiacs that poisoned his system, accelerating his decline. As conditions worsened, these emperors resorted to increasingly extreme measures, their dysfunctions intensifying over time in a spiral of desperation. Tiberius, his impotence deepening with age, escalated from tiddlers to more violent debauches, breaking bones and abusing women, his island exile a fortress of secrets where spies ensured silence. Yet leaks to Rome fueled rumors that eroded his authority, Majestus' trials multiplying as paranoia gripped him, the empire administered remotely through letters stained with the ink of tyranny. Caligula's post-illness frenzy saw him demanding divine honors, his sexual demands growing erratic, raping senators' wives at dinners, the palace a site of nightly horrors where exhaustion bred hallucinations, perhaps temporal lobe epilepsy triggering visions that blurred reality. His attempts to solve perceived inadequacies through public humiliations backfiring into widespread discontent. Nero's innovations in depravity peaked with Sporus, the castration a botched affair leaving the boy in agony, infections requiring constant bandaging with herbs that failed to staunch the pus, Nero's own health faltering from excesses, gout and venereal sores plaguing him, desperate measures like public weddings to men alienating the military, purges of perceived threats escalating to the Great Fire of 64 AD, blamed on his madness. Elagabalus, frustrated by surgical impossibilities, turned to more public displays of femininity, painting his face with lead-based cosmetics that poison his blood, causing tremors and delusions, his isolation complete as family plotted against him, the Praetorians' loyalty waning under the weight of his scandals. Commodus's deterioration manifested in arena combats where he slaughtered animals and men, his sexual stamina waning, resorting to violence to achieve arousal, the harem's size swelling as compensation, but betrayals mounted, culminating in assassination plots. The final collapses were inevitable, private dysfunctions precipitating public downfalls. Tiberius died in 37 AD, possibly smothered by Macro, his body frail from years of excess, autopsy rumors revealing genital deformities scarred by disease, the truth emerging in Suetonius's accounts despite efforts to sanitize his legacy, preserved letters and servant testimonies exposing the Capri horrors. Caligula's assassination in 41 AD came amid a corridor ambush, his body hacked, the incestuous secrets spilling with his blood, contemporary observers like Philo documenting the palace brothels, the historical cover-up minimal, as his unpopularity ensured vilification. Nero's suicide in 68 AD followed revolt, his last moments whimpering as AIDS finished him, Sporus by his side in mockery, post-mortem revelations from freedmen detailing the animal games, the year of the four emperors' chaos a direct consequence of his instabilities. Elagabalus was murdered in 222 AD, dragged through streets, his body mutilated, the proposed genitalia absent, but his painted corpse a testament to dysfunction. Historians like Herodian preserving the tales despite imperial damnatio. Commodus strangled in his bath in 192 AD, his harem dispersed, gladiatorial gear auctioned, the truth of his excesses immortalized in the Historia Augusta. Returning to that grotto on Capri, where you once stood amid the nibbling horrors, now transformed by knowledge into a symbol of humanity's frailty, the emperor's shocking sexual practices reveal universal truths about power's corrupting force, how private dysfunctions, be they pedophilic urges, incestuous bonds, or sadistic innovations, undermine public facades, echoing in modern scandals where leaders hide intimate failures behind authority. These ancient realities, graphic and unrelenting, remind us that beneath the veneer of history lie festering wounds of the human condition, The emperor's legacies haunting us with images of tiddlers in the waves, sisters in shadowed beds, castrated boys in bridal gowns, an eternal warning that unchecked desire devours empires, leaving only the stench of decay in its wake.